welcome. Thought I'd begin by sharing a few thoughts I had earlier today when thinking about recording an episode. I was sitting in a cafe doing some writing, and there was just the acknowledgement of the subtlety of how subtle the present moment is. And in contrast, how heavy the mind is, how heavy thoughts can be. And the acknowledgement of letting thoughts go, and the subtlety of the presence only then becomes visible. It's not the right word, but I guess experienced, visible on some levels, but to say that you are present, then you are in that subtle energy. And there's an easy flow. This was another thought, or perhaps an image came to mind of a mountain stream, the gentleness of that mountain stream, of how natural and effortless the movement of the stream, just flowing. And the qualities of that just made me think about being present, and it made me realize that I wasn't present. At the beginning of this day, there was lots of heavy thoughts, and there was upset about the state of, in quotes, my life, or the state of my mental health. There was some sadness there. There was a thought that says, is this my life? And in that moment there was another thought that said, okay, let's be present. That's all you can do. But in retrospect, I can note that as I got ready to leave and walked to the cafe, I was very much in thought. There was some awareness there, but only very slight. There was mostly heavy thoughts. And as I had my coffee in the cafe with my laptop in front of me, the image of the stream came, and the acknowledgement that, a simple acknowledgement that I wasn't present, and it wasn't in the sense of failure or I should be present. It was just, why am I not present? Why am I not in the lightness, the gentleness, the effortless healing energy of the present moment? Why would I not be? Why would I choose to be in heavy thoughts? And the contrast came, the imagery came, and there was the noting of how subtle the present moment was. Even though there was a thought and the intention to be present, still it was missed. Still thought got in there and covered it up and took me on a journey, took my attention away from the present moment. But experiencing heavy thought and then acknowledging, noting and experiencing the subtlety of presence, you almost get to enjoy the peacefulness again. So used to the loud noises and suddenly the sudden silence. And the sudden joy of the present moment. So I just wanted to note that we can almost get used to the notion of being present. There can be thoughts about being present, but still the present moment is missed. And just going with the idea of contrast of how heavy thoughts can be. Sometimes you can notice certain activities and how much energy they can take. For myself, this was noticed in conversation, in the act of talking, the act of listening. And I feel that in my situation, with my mental health, with my severe sensitivities, the contrast was very, very clear in how much mental energy, mental activity conversation can generate. And again, it's using the words subtlety and lightness as a present moment. In conversation, it was the act of talking, listening can be very cumbersome. It can be very disturbing to the present moment. That's how, at a moment, it is experienced. And often it can leave an impression. There can be, as well as the impact of the energy, like a big boulder in a lake, then the ripples can go on for hours, or in my situation, often days. It can come up as disturbances, perhaps not a consistent disturbance, but the waves may come and go. And this may be different for all of us depending on the condition or the health of the mind. Where for some, a conversation may not have that much impact at all. It may invoke presence, and others it may be the opposite. So the main thing is just to note, to observe. What can seem heavy, what can seem disturbing, what can take you away from presence. And often that awareness is enough to know, to allow intuition, to allow the present moment to guide action. The mind may say, okay, let's not do that activity at all. But this is just perhaps a fear of the mind. It's not a balanced view, not an informed, intelligent, a true intelligent observation or analysis on the current situation. But the awareness from your centered space may direct, inform, guide this activity from that activity, when, how, all in the objective of remaining in the present moment. Whether it's perhaps taking less phone calls or speaking with certain people, certain times of the day that are more challenging than others, all of this will be in some ways taken care of in the present moment. Of course, there can be time set aside to use the mind to analyze, to look, but all of this is naturally filtered into the intelligence of the now. One thing to mention before we begin continuing the reading of A New Earth is going forward. Perhaps it may not be possible to do a full reading of future books with copyright in mind. Something that didn't occur to me when beginning reading A New Earth in a full reading. So even though there is talking before and after, and there is analysis and observations, it somehow feels that's not enough, or it still perhaps infringes or may not be fair, perhaps, on the authors and the book and the content, the creation. So perhaps going forward there may be a different way of sharing future books, perhaps maybe shorter extracts, perhaps not a continuous reading. So I feel it goes too close to that side of things where it's so that's just the awareness that I've had for that. Something that didn't enter my mind. For me, this was just a way to help others, to help myself, but there needs to be awareness of that as well, where perhaps if anyone is listening and is aware of these, or if there's any more enlightenment on the copyright and how much is too much to be read, then feel free to inform me on that. So perhaps that will give me some guidelines on where I don't step over that line. But as far as I'm aware, by doing a full reading, that I think that's perhaps too much, and maybe I'll continue with almost at the end of A New Earth now in some ways, so perhaps it would be nice just to complete the reading of this book, but maybe going forward there might be some changes and some caution in regards to not infringing on the author's rights and their creations. So we've reached the passage titled Addictions. A long-standing compulsive behavior pattern may be called an addiction, and an addiction lives inside you. As a quasi-entity or sub-personality, an energy field that periodically takes you over completely. It even takes over your mind, the voice in your head, which then becomes the voice of the addiction. It may be saying, "You've had a rough day. You deserve a treat. Why deny yourself the only pleasure that is left in your life?" And so, if you are identified with the internal voice due to lack of awareness, you find yourself walking to the fridge and reaching for that rich chocolate cake. At other times, the addiction may bypass the thinking mind completely, and you suddenly find yourself puffing on a cigarette or holding a drink. How did that get into my hand? Taking the cigarette out of the packet and lighting it, or pouring yourself a drink, were actions performed in complete unconsciousness. If you have a compulsive behavior pattern, such as smoking, overeating, drinking, TV watching, internet addiction, or whatever it may be, this is what you can do. When you notice the compulsive need arising in you, stop and take 3 conscious breaths. This generates awareness. Then, for a few minutes, be aware of the compulsive urge itself as an energy field inside you. Consciously feel that need to physically or mentally ingest or consume a certain substance, or the desire to act out some form of compulsive behavior. Then take a few more conscious breaths. After that, you may find that the compulsive urge has disappeared for the time being, or you may find that it still overpowers you, and you cannot help but indulge or act it out again. Don't make it into a problem. Make the addiction part of your awareness practice in the way described above. As awareness grows, addictive patterns will weaken and eventually dissolve. Remember, however, to catch any thoughts that justify the addictive behavior, sometimes with clever arguments, as they arise in your mind. Ask yourself, who is talking here? And you will realize the addiction is talking. As long as you know that, as long as you are present as the observer of your mind, it is less likely to trick you into doing what it wants. The following passage is titled Inner Body Awareness. Another simple but highly effective way of finding space in your life is closely linked to the breath. You will find that by feeling the subtle flow of air in and out of the body, as well as the rise and fall of your chest and abdomen, you are also becoming aware of the inner body. Your attention may then shift from the breath to that felt aliveness within you, diffused throughout the body. Most people are so distracted by their thoughts, so identified with the voices in their heads, they can no longer feel the aliveness within them. To be unable to feel the life that animates the physical body, the very life that you are, is the greatest deprivation that can happen to you. You then begin to look not only for substitutes for that natural state of well-being within, but also for something to cover up the continuous unease that you feel when you are not in touch with the aliveness that is always there, but usually overlooked. Some of the substitutes people seek out are drug-induced highs, sensory overstimulation such as excessively loud music, thrills or dangerous activities, or an obsession with sex. Even drama in relationships is used as a substitute for that genuine sense of aliveness. The most sought-after cover-up for the continuous background unease are intimate relationships. A man or a woman who is going to make me happy. It is, of course, also one of the most frequently experienced of all the letdowns. And when the unease surfaces again, people will usually blame their partners for it. Take 2 or 3 conscious breaths. Now see if you can detect a subtle sense of aliveness that pervades your entire inner body. Perhaps in this moment I'll pause the reading so we can follow and take a few conscious breaths before we continue and see if we can sense that aliveness within us. Can you feel your body from within, so to speak? Sense briefly specific parts of your body. Feel your hands, then your arms, feet and legs. Can you feel your abdomen, chest, neck and head? What about your lips? Is there life in them? Then become aware again of the inner body as a whole. You may want to close your eyes initially for this practice, and once you can feel your body, open your eyes, look around, and continue to feel your body at the same time. Some readers may find there is no need to close their eyes. They can in fact feel their inner body as they read this. So we'll read one more passage. This one is titled Inner and Outer Space. Your inner body is not solid but spacious. It is not your physical form, but the life that animates the physical form. It is the intelligence that created and sustains the body, simultaneously coordinating hundreds of different functions of such extraordinary complexity that the human mind can only understand a tiny fraction of it. When you become aware of it, what is really happening is that the intelligence is becoming aware of itself. It is the elusive life that no scientist has ever found, because the consciousness that is looking for it is it. Physicists have discovered that the apparent solidity of matter is an illusion created by our senses. This includes the physical body, which we perceive and think of as form, but 99.99% of which is actually empty space. This is how vast the space is between the atoms compared to their size, and there is as much space again within each atom. The physical body is no more than a misperception of who you are. In many ways, it is a microcosmic version of outer space. To give you an idea of how vast the space is between celestial bodies, consider this: light travelling at a constant speed of 186,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers per second, takes just over 1 second to travel between the Earth and the Moon. Light from the Sun takes about 8 minutes to reach the Earth. Light from our nearest neighbour in space, a star called Proxima Centauri, which is the sun that is closest to our own sun, travels for 4.5 years before it reaches the Earth. And this is how vast the space is that surrounds us. And then there is the intergalactic space, whose vastness defies all comprehension. Light from the galaxy closest to our own, the Andromeda galaxy, takes 2.4 million years to reach us. Isn't it amazing that your body is just as spacious as the universe? So your physical body, which is form, reveals itself as essentially formless when you go deeper into it. It becomes a doorway into inner space. Although inner space has no form, it is intensely alive. That empty space is life in its fullness, the unmanifested source out of which all manifestation flows. The traditional word for that source is God. Thoughts and words belong to the world of form. They cannot express the formless. So when you say, "I can feel my inner body," that is a misperception created by thought. What is really happening is that the consciousness that appears as the body, the consciousness that I am, is becoming conscious of itself. When I no longer confuse who I am with a temporary form of me, then the dimension of the limitless and the eternal God can express itself through me and guide me. It also frees me from the dependency on form. However, a purely intellectual recognition or belief that I am not this form does not help. The all-important question is, at this moment, can I sense the presence of inner space, which really means, can I sense my own presence, or rather, the presence that I am? Or we can approach this truth using a different pointer. Ask yourself, am I aware not only of what is happening at this moment, but also of the now itself as the living, timeless inner space in which everything happens? Although this question seems to have nothing to do with the inner body, you may be surprised that by becoming aware of the space of now, you suddenly feel more alive inside. You are feeling the aliveness of the inner body, the aliveness that is an intrinsic part of the joy of being. We have to enter the body to go beyond it and find out that we are not that. As much as possible in everyday life, use awareness of the inner body to create space. When waiting, when listening to someone, when pausing to look at the sky, a tree, a flower, your partner or child, feel the aliveness within at the same time. This means part of your attention or consciousness remains formless, and the rest is available for the outer world of form. Whenever you inhabit your body in this way, it serves as an anchor for staying present in the now. It prevents you from losing yourself in thinking, in emotions, or in external situations. When you think, feel, perceive, and experience consciousness, when you think, feel, perceive, and experience, consciousness is born into form. It is reincarnating into a thought, a feeling, a sense perception, an experience. The cycle of rebirths that Buddhists hope to get out of eventually is happening continuously, and it is only at this moment, through the power of now, that you can get out of it. Through complete acceptance of the form of the now, you become internally aligned with space, which is the essence of now. Through acceptance, you become spacious inside, aligned with space instead of form. That brings true perspective and balance into your life. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I wish you well, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.